Welcome back to JavaScript testing for beginners. Today, we're going to talk about simplifying and automating your test suite. We're going to look at writing some custom scripts for package.json to help make your testing easier. We're going to watch command, which will watch our tests. We're going to do a little bit of refactor because Mocha allows you to set an options file, so we don't have to keep typing things on the command line. We're going to look at recursive tests, skipping and isolating tests. Finally, we're going to look at installing some Git hooks. This is going to help us to run our tests when we commit code or when we push it to remote repositories, and that really helps when you're doing continuous integration. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at our package.json file. In here, we've got the script section. We can put any names of scripts, and then we can do npm run script. So npm run, in this case, it's test. At the moment, it doesn't do anything. There's no test specified, so it just echoes that out. Instead of npm run, there are some standard script names. So you can just do npm test, and it will do the same thing as calling npm run test. So firstly, I asked you to keep on typing mocha with require babel-register. So the reason I suggested doing that is because I think you should learn the command line before you get overwhelmed with tooling and hide it all away in the package.json file. So let's move that command into our scripts. One thing to note here is that the npm scripts reference the node modules, so we don't need to add the explicit path to where mocha is. And there we go, it's running all of our tests. So let's write a script to watch for changes in our code, and then it'll rerun the tests. So let's name it test watch. And now we'll do another mocha command. So we need for our ES6 babel-register again. But it also has the ---- watch parameter. So if we run test:/watch script, it'll now watch out for our tests and rerun them when we alter the code. So tests are running. So let's bring up day 5 tests. Okay, let's just alter one of our tests that we already had down here. Try again later. Blah. Let's rerun them. So at the moment it says it's failed because it's expecting that not to be there. We'll just save the file again. Tests will rerun. Now, instead of reading the command line parameters, Mocha can use an options file. So let's create one now. It expects it to be in our test directory, and it's called mocha.opts. And what this does is you can put all of the command line parameters you'd normally use and put them into an options file. So firstly, let's take off the require babel-register and put that into our options file. Okay, so if we just run Mocha now, it'll read that options file. So we can do npm test again. Again, it reads from the options file. So let's remove that from our watch as well. We'll still need the watch command there though. The next thing that Mocha can do is to run tests recursively. So at the moment, all of our tests are in the root directory. But what happens if we create a new directory, and we'll call it unit tests, and bring our day 2 tests into there. So if we just run our tests again with npm test, you can see that we've run day 3 tests, day 4 tests, and day 5 tests, but we're missing day 2 tests because they're in a subdirectory. So if we add ---- recursive into here, now at the moment the day 2 test will be looking for the code in the wrong directory. So let's just add an extra directory up, and we'll run our test with npm test. Great, the day 2 tests are all run there. So what we can do is we can bring all of these into the subdirectory and update the file paths. And if we run our tests again, they now all run correctly and they're all in a subdirectory. This is really useful for if you've got unit tests and integration tests. We can create subdirectories. I normally make the folder structure the same in my source files as I do in my test files. So each of the tests matches up to one of the source files. So one thing we can do when we're running our tests is we can skip tests or we can isolate tests. So let's try this now. So if we just run, we don't want to run the day 2 test. So we can either do describe. So we run the test now. You can see they're all skipped. They're all in blue there. Alternatively, we can do describe.skip. They both mean the same things. And that's great. So I've skipped the whole day 2 test suite there. Alternatively, I can just skip sub test suites. So there we can do skip. And that'll just skip out the data type tests. The rest of the tests will run. Or I can skip one specific test. Alternatively, we can isolate tests. We can use only. So do it.only. That'll do that single test. Or we can do part of a test suite on the describe block there. Or again, we can do it on the whole test suite if we want to. And there, only this test suite, only day 2's tests run. It just excludes all the others. This is really useful for isolating your tests. Maybe one of your tests fails. You can look at what's going wrong. So one thing we did in all of our tests was we had some boilerplate. We import expect from chai, and then in some of our other tests, we also import synon. So what we can do is we can require another file which sets all this up for us already. So in mocha.opts, let's require another file. Require, in our test directory, we'll call it perhaps support.js. So if we create that file here, this will be included for all of our tests. Okay, so what can we do? Let's take out expect chai. There, if we run our tests now, they're going to fail because it doesn't know what expect is. If you see how it's failed, it doesn't know what expect is. So let's bring expect into our support files. So if we import expect from chai. Okay, so Node has a global object which defines properties within the global scope. So let's add expect to that. Now if we run our test again, great stuff, they all pass. Okay, so that means for all of our tests, we can take out the expect. And they should all still run. Likewise, we can do the same thing with synon. Let's take that out, put it into our support file. And if we add that to the global scope again, let's run our tests. Day 5 should pass. Add synon there. So we can just take those out. There we go. All of our tests should still work. So any of your setup code could go in a support file that you require in your mocha.opts. This is really useful for setting up any global data that you're going to use across all of your tests. So one thing we should talk about is how you run your tests in a production environment. I always like to run my linter when I commit code, and I also like to run tests when I push the code to a remote repository. So if we include a package called husky, then this will help us to set our Git hooks within our scripts in package.json. So let's install that now. npm install --save dev husky. So that now gives us some special script names. We can do pre-commit, that happens before the commit. We can do pre-push, that happens before we do a push. So let's run our test. We can do npm test. It can run an npm command in here which runs on Mocha. So here I have a load of files which I haven't actually added to Git yet. So we do a git add, and then we do a git commit, add day 6 tests. Now as you can see, Husky is now running our pre-commit hook and it runs our tests. So that's great. So if we do npm test before we do a push, but we've modified the package.json, so we do git commit -am now. We can just add and write the message. Update package.json. That's fine. Our commit hook now runs a test. And we'll push that to remote repository. And that also runs a test. You probably don't want to have this on both your commit and your push. As I say, normally I have my linting step on my commit, and then I always run the tests before the push. And if they fail, it means that you won't be able to push it to a remote repository, and that helps your continuous integration environment, especially if you're working with other people in a team. I hope this lesson on simplifying and automating your testing process has really helped you. And thanks for watching JavaScript Testing for Beginners.